Welcome to the next part of speech video. We just talked about adjectives, which was the first of two kinds of modifiers in our language. And the next one is adverbs. So adverbs, like adjectives, they're words that describe. They describe other words in the sentence. The only difference is what kind of words they describe. If you recall from the previous video, adjectives describe nouns and pronouns. And nouns and pronouns act exactly the same in the sentence because a noun, remember, person, place, or thing, and a pronoun replaces a noun. Adverbs are a little more complicated than adjectives because they describe or modify three types of words, not just nouns and pronouns. They modify or describe verbs, adjectives, and other adverbs. And we'll talk about what we mean with some examples, okay? So they're a little trickier in that regard because they're a little more versatile. They do a little more, okay? First, let's talk about how they modify verbs. Now you can see verb in the word adverb, so you can think of it as they add to verbs. It's an easy way to remember. Okay, just remember that they also modify adjectives and other adverbs. But just like with the adjectives, adverbs answer questions about the words they modify. We said that adjectives answer 4 questions. Well, adverbs answer 4 questions as well. How, when, where, and why. So if you can remember those 4 questions, and those are called adverbial questions, they will help you identify adverbs because words that answer one of these 4 questions about another word in a sentence are acting like adverbs. Okay? Let's take a look at some examples. Awkwardly, quickly, lazily, silently, stylishly, well, today, very so. Now, you probably notice a pattern in the first part of that list of examples. They end the same way. In our language, we take adjectives like awkward, or lazy, or silent, and we add LYs to them, and they become adverbs. Now, there are exceptions to that rule, but it's a general pattern you can follow. So when you see a word end with an LY, stop and think to yourself, is it an adverb? Could it be an adverb? And remember, if it's answering one of these 4 adverbial questions, it in fact is an adverb. So that's a clue. But it's not the only way you can identify adverbs. There's a caution, because take a look at these other examples. They don't end in ly. Furthermore, there are some words, like friendly, that ends in ly that isn't an adverb. So it's not a be-all, end-all absolute. But it's certainly a pattern to pay attention to. Okay? Now, let's take a look at some examples of sentences and see how we can tell an adverb from other words in the sentence. We're going to look at it in a couple different ways. We're going to see what question it answers, and I'm also going to show you how they modify a variety of words. Remember, verbs, adjectives, and other adverbs. So let's start with the first example. He quickly threw the ball to first base. Okay? Now, you will notice that there is an ly word in that sentence. It's quickly, right? So maybe that caught your eye right away. Now, to determine if it is in fact an adverb, we have to do more. We should ask ourselves, what word is it describing or modifying? If it's describing or modifying a verb, an adjective, or another adverb, then it is in fact an adverb, okay? So, what question, getting back to the adverbial questions, what question does it answer in the sentence? He threw the ball. What does quickly answer? Hopefully you're thinking, well, it answers how he threw the ball. I repeat, it answers how, which is an adverbial question, how he threw. So it's modifying what word in the sentence. Hopefully you realize it's modifying the verb threw. Okay? It's answering how was it thrown? It was thrown quickly, not thrown hastily or thrown wildly. Notice in my other examples, naturally, and we're adding lys to them. Okay? So it's thrown quickly. It answers the question how it was thrown. And because it's modifying a verb, it's an adverb. It's describing in more detail that verb throw. Okay? Now, let's take a look at the second example. I was very hungry. Now, from our previous videos, we learned that there are two types of verbs, action verbs and state of being verbs. There's no action in this sentence, but hopefully you're remembering that funny guy's name that we talked about, Mr. Isamar B. Waswerben, and was is our state of being verb. Okay, so was is the verb, and I was very hungry. Okay, so if we looked at its simplest components, I is the subject. What about I? Was is our verb. I was hungry. Hungry, if you recall from our previous video, is describing which word? It's describing the subject. The subject is a pronoun, and words that describe pronouns are adjectives. So hungry is an adjective. Hopefully you follow that. We talked about predicate adjectives. Remember, a predicate adjective is simply when you have the subject followed by a state of being verb followed by an adjective. I was hungry, predicate adjective. So the question now becomes, well, what is very? What is very doing in the sentence? What is its function in the sentence? Very is modifying hungry. It's answering what question about hungry? Hopefully you realized. How hungry? Not just a little hungry, not extremely hungry, or mildly hungry, very hungry. So it's modifying hungry, and because hungry is an adjective, we've got our second example of our definition here. This adverb is describing an adjective, the adjective hungry. So in the first example, quickly modified the verb through, and in the second example, very modified the adjective hungry, answering the question, how hungry? So you can see that adverbs are versatile. They modify verbs and adjectives. But don't stop there. They also modify other adverbs. Let's take a look at the third example sentence. My friend dresses so stylishly. Okay? Friend is our subject. What about that subject? She dresses so stylishly. Now, our verb in that sentence, the action, is what word? Hopefully you realized it's dresses. And then you ask yourself, how does she dress? She dresses stylishly. Stylishly answers the question, how she dressed. I'm going to rewrite this a little lower so we have room to draw some arrows here. My friend dresses so stylishly. So, dresses is our verb. Stylishly answers the question, how does she dress? She dresses stylishly. Then so answers the question, how stylishly? Not a little stylishly, but so stylishly. In other words, and it gets a little confusing, stylishly is an adverb that modifies the verb dresses, but so is an adverb modifying another adverb. So remember in our definition that adverbs describe or modify verbs, adjectives, and other adverbs. And in this context, so is describing another adverb stylishly. Okay? Now, in all of these examples, you'll notice that we're only focusing on how. And that's just the way these sentences work. But what about when, where, and why? So let's take a look at the next sentence. By the way, if you've noticed, most of these in our examples end in ly, but look at so, and look at, in the previous example, very, they do not end in ly, so it's not an absolute. I'm going to clear this for a moment so we can look at the next sentences. So yesterday we went shopping everywhere, okay? We is the subject of our sentence. What did we do? We went shopping, okay? So we have yesterday and we have everywhere. Now, in different contexts, these could be different parts of speech. If I said yesterday was fun, yesterday is the subject of the sentence. It's a thing, it's a day, it's a noun. But in this context, it's not functioning like a noun at all. We is the subject, and yesterday is answering what question? Hopefully you're realizing it's answering the question when we went shopping. And when, as you recall, is an, is an adverbial question. Now, everywhere, same thing. Everywhere could be a couple different things, right? In different contexts. The clothes were everywhere. Everywhere we looked. In this context, we went shopping everywhere. Everywhere answers what question? It answers where we went shopping. And where is an adverbial question. Now, why is a question that you're really only going to see with phrases that function as adverbs. And we're not quite there yet. We will talk about phrases acting as either adjectives or adverbs later. Right now we're focusing on the basic parts of speech. But trust me when I say, sometimes phrases act like adverbs because they answer the question why something was done. So how, when, where, and why are the four adverbial questions, and adverbs are words that modify or describe verbs, adjectives, and other adverbs. Hopefully that helps you. And if you would like any more information on adverbs, you can visit the link on the learning module that'll take you to grammarrevolution.com with some additional examples. The next one we have up, we will talk about is conjunctions. Thanks for watching.